Welcome, everybody. This is Alan with Daily Armour of God. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. This is reading the Old Testament chronologically in 111 days, and we're on day 85. Today we'll be reading a mixture of books. We'll be reading 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and Nahum. So let's get started here in 2 Kings. Yesterday we left off with Hezekiah, unfortunately, passing away, and Manasseh, his son, unfortunately, is an evil king. So 2 Kings 21. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hephzibah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, after the abominations of the heathen, whom Yahweh cast out before the children of Israel. For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed, and he reared up altars for Baal, and made a grove, as did Ahab king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. Sad. And he built altars in the house of Yahweh, of which Yahweh said, In Jerusalem will I put my name. And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of Yahweh. And he made his son pass through the fire, and observed times, and used enchantments, and dealt with familiar spirits and wizards. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of Yahweh, to provoke him to anger. And he set a graven image of the grove that he made in the house, of which Yahweh said to David and to Solomon his son, In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever. Neither will I make the feet of Israel move any more out of the land which I gave their fathers, only if they will observe to do according to all that I have commanded them, and according to all the law that my servant Moses commanded them. But they hearkened not, and Manasseh seduced them to do more evil than did the nations whom Yahweh destroyed before the children of Israel. Yeah, there's that verse I was talking about so many times. They actually get to a point that the children of Israel as a whole get to a point where they do worse. They do more evil than the nations that were there before them, whom God destroyed because of all their abominations. But here we go with Manasseh, one of the most evil kings in Judah. And it says here in the Bible that they did worse. They did more evil. And it's just sick. It's sickening. Especially considering, how on fire Hezekiah, his dad, was. How on fire for God he was. It's very surprising. So, yep, they did worse. They did way more evil. And Yahweh spake by his servants the prophets, saying, Because Manasseh king of Judah hath done these abominations, and hath done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and hath made Judah also to sin with his idols. Therefore thus saith Yahweh God of Israel, Behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whosoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle. And I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria, and the plummet of the house of Ahab, and I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. And I will forsake the remnant of mine inheritance, and deliver them into the hand of their enemies, and they shall become a prey and a spoil to all their enemies, because they have done that which was evil in my sight, and have provoked me to anger, since the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even unto this day. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much, till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another, beside his sin wherewith he made Judah to sin, in doing that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and all that he did, and his sin that he sinned, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And Manasseh slept with his fathers, and was buried in the garden of his own house, in the garden of Uzzah, and Ammon his son reigned in his stead. Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 2 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Meshullemeth, the daughter of Haruz of Jotbah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, as his father Manasseh did. And he walked in all the way that his father walked in, and served the idols that his father served, and worshipped them. And he forsook Yahweh God of his fathers, and walked not in the way of Yahweh. And the servants of Ammon conspired against him, and slew the king in his own house. And the people of the land slew all them that had conspired against King Ammon, and the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his stead. Now the rest of the acts of Ammon which he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And he was buried in his sepulchre in the garden of Uzzah, and Josiah his son reigned in his stead. So we see here, like a domino effect of, basically what was happening in the kingdom of Israel. If you remember, in the kingdom of Israel, there was not one good king in Israel, the kingdom of Israel, and all of them were evil, and there was so much deception, so much conspiracy going on, killing kings, and I mean, it was just a mess. And now you see here, the same thing is happening. So, yeah. So we went from Hezekiah, good king, to Manasseh, evil king, Ammon, another evil king, now Josiah. And we're slowly making our way down to the very last few kings of Judah. Yep, it's getting closer and closer to the time of Babylon, the time where they're carried off to Babylon. So, moving on to 2 Chronicles 32. After these things and the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah and encamped against the fenced cities and thought to win them for himself. So we're going back a little bit to Hezekiah. When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib was come, and that he was purposed to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters of the fountains which were without the city, and they did help him. So there was gathered much people together, who stopped all the fountains and the brook that ran through the midst of the land, saying, Why should the kings of Assyria come and find much water? Also he strengthened himself, and built up all the wall that was broken, and raised it up to the towers, and another wall without, and repaired Milo in the city of David, and made darts and shields in abundance. And he set captains of war over the people, and gathered them together to him in the street of the gate of the city, and spake comfortably to them, saying, Be strong and courageous, be not afraid nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude that is with him, for there be more with us than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord, Yahweh our God, to help us and to fight our battles. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah king of Judah. After this did Sennacherib king of Assyria send his servants to Jerusalem, but he himself laid siege against Lachish, and all his power with him, unto Hezekiah king of Judah, and unto all Judah that were with him, saying, Thus saith Sennacherib king of Assyria, whereon do ye trust that ye abide in the siege in Jerusalem? So this is where they basically try to undermine King Hezekiah, and the king of Assyria sent his servants to, basically talk smack and try to dismay the people of the city. Doth not Hezekiah persuade you to give over yourselves to die by famine and by thirst, saying, Yahweh our God shall deliver us out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Hath not the same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem, saying, Ye shall worship before one altar, and burn incense upon it? Know ye not what I and my fathers have done unto all the people of other lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands any ways able to deliver their lands out of mine hand? Who was there among all the gods of those nations that my fathers utterly destroyed, that could deliver his people out of mine hand, that your God should be able to deliver you out of mine hand? Now therefore let not Hezekiah deceive you, nor persuade you on this matter, neither yet believe him, for no God of any nation or kingdom was able to deliver his people out of mine hand, and out of the hand of my fathers. How much less shall your God deliver you out of mine hand? And his servant spake yet more against Yahweh God, and against his servant Hezekiah. He wrote also letters to rail on Yahweh God of Israel, and to speak against him, saying, As the gods of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people out of mine hand, so shall not the God of Hezekiah deliver his people out of mine hand. Then they cried with a loud voice in the Jews' speech unto the people of Jerusalem that were on the wall, to affright them and to trouble them, that they might take the city. And they spake against the God of Jerusalem, as against the gods of the people of the earth, which were the work of the hands of men. And for this cause Hezekiah the king and the prophet Isaiah the son of Amoz prayed and cried to heaven. And Yahweh sent an angel, which cut off all the mighty men of valor, and the leaders and the captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame to face his own land. And when he was come into the house of his God, little g, they that came forth of his own bowels slew him there with the sword. Yeah, his own two sons killed him in his temple to a false god. Ironic, isn't it? uh, it's so ironic. Think about it. The king of Assyria was basically talking smack to Hezekiah and to the people in Jerusalem about the Lord God Almighty, Yahweh, and saying, all the other gods weren't able to save the nations. What can your God do? And so the fact that the king of Assyria was killed in his temple where his God did not save him. I mean, do you see the irony here? Yeah, he was killed in the temple of his God, lowercase g, and his God did not save him. So all that talking smack about Yahweh, yeah, don't tempt the Lord your God. Thus Yahweh saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib king of Assyria, and from the hand of all other, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts unto Yahweh to Jerusalem, and presents to Hezekiah king of Judah, so that he was magnified in the sight of all nations from thenceforth. Which is surprising how people were so apt to fall when his son reigned. They saw how great Hezekiah was and how blessed they were with Hezekiah. And then, his son reigns in his stead and does all this evil, and people just go along with it. It's very surprising. In those days, Hezekiah was sick to the death, and prayed unto Yahweh, and he spake unto him, and gave him a sign. But Hezekiah rendered not again according to the benefit done unto him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore there was wrath upon him, and upon Judah and Jerusalem. Notwithstanding, Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, both he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of Yahweh came not upon them in the days of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah had exceeding much riches and honor, and he made himself treasuries for silver and for gold and for precious stones and for spices and for shields and for all manner of pleasant jewels, storehouses also for the increase of corn and wine and oil, and stalls for all manner of beasts and coats for flocks. Moreover, he provided him cities and possessions of flocks and herds in abundance, for God had given him substance very much. This same Hezekiah also stopped the upper watercourse of Gihon, and brought it straight down to the west side of the city of David, and Hezekiah prospered in all his works. Howbeit, in the business of the ambassadors of the princes of Babylon, who sent unto him to inquire the wonder that was done in the land, God left him to try him, that he might know all that was in his heart. Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his goodness, behold, they are written in the vision of Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, and in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. By the way, if you're wondering about this situation and why it's so serious, King Hezekiah was healed. Remember, God gave him 15 more years. And then these ambassadors from Babylon came, and Hezekiah was like, here, let me show you everything that I possess. Does that sound like somebody who's being humble, showing strangers everything, showing all his riches and all his glory? Do you think that God was upset because he didn't give God the glory? No, he's like, here, let me show you what's in my storehouses. Let me show you what's in my treasuries. Let me show you what's in my house. Let me show you all that what I have. So yeah, it's like a slap in the face. Um, God was trying his heart. Will you give me the glory, Hezekiah? Will you give me the glory? And God can still do that in today's world. God, is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. God will do that. He will try our hearts. So if God's done something for you, if he's blessed you with something, he may leave you temporarily to see where your heart lies. Are you trusting in what he gave you? Are you trusting in your wealth? Are you trusting in your financial stability? Are you trusting in your possessions? Are you trusting in all that you have surrounding you? Or are you trusting in God alone? So there's a lesson here to be learned, not to trust in your own riches and your own glory, but to trust in God and to rest in God. So that's why this situation was very serious. And that's why Isaiah, if you remember, Isaiah went and said, who were those men? What did you show them? And Hezekiah was like, yeah, I showed them everything. And then Isaiah was like, hear the words of the Lord. Everything that you have, everything that you've stored up is going to be taken away, utterly taken away by Babylon. And it's true. It comes to pass. Babylon, a few years later comes and besieges the city. People die from famine, people die from pestilence, people die from the sword when they finally break through, and a lot of people are taken away captive. And every treasure gets taken out of the temple, and then the temple gets destroyed, the walls get destroyed. It's left desolate, like exactly like Isaiah the prophet prophesied, and exactly as how God prophesied as well, that he's going to turn the city upside down, and he does. So that is, in a sense, Hezekiah's sin there was pride. He was prideful of everything that he had, all his riches and glory and honor and everything. That's why it's very vital, if you're being blessed in your life, to always remain humble and always remember who is giving you these blessings. It's not your own hands that are giving you the blessings, it's God. Everything that you have, everything that you think you own is God's. God has given you. So, very important lessons here. Let's continue on. Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his goodness, behold, they are written in the vision of Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, and in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. And Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the chiefest of the sepulchres of the sons of David, and all of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem did honor him at his death, and Manasseh his son reigned in his stead. 2 Chronicles 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. Which, here's another surprising thing. This evil king reigned for 55 years. It's like, why? Why did such an evil king, and it happened in Israel too, the kingdom of Israel, these evil kings got to reign for a really long time. Well, not all of them, but some of them did. But it's like, why did this evil king get to live longer than some of these past good kings? Like, think about it. 55 years, I'm looking at the list right now. Yeah, Manasseh, one of the most evil kings in all of Judah, actually he is the most evil king in all of Judah, reigned the longest. He even reigned longer than Hezekiah his father, which God, blessed him, and Hezekiah had his heart right with God. And it's just like, why did such an evil king, out of all the kings of Judah, why did he get to live the longest? So there's just things like that don't make sense. It's the same as when we see, evil going on in the world that gets to prosper. We see evil prospering. The only thing I could think of is that he's using these evil people, evil kings, for a purpose. That's the only conclusion I can come to. And also that we shouldn't weary ourselves because of the evil. The Bible says, don't be envious of those who do evil, and to not worry about it, because, God will recompense. God will have his vengeance. So if we see them prospering, it's only temporarily. They will get what's coming to them. Okay, so anyway, he reigned 55 years, but did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, like unto the abominations of the heathen whom Yahweh had cast out before the children of Israel. For he built again the high places which Hezekiah his father had broken down, and he reared up altars for Baalim, and made groves, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. Also he built altars in the house of Yahweh, whereof Yahweh had said, In Jerusalem shall my name be forever. And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of Yahweh. And he caused his children to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Also he observed times, he used enchantments, he used witchcraft, dealt with a familiar spirit, and with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of Yahweh to provoke him to anger. And he set a carved image, the idol which he had made in the house of God, of which God had said to David and to Solomon his son, In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen before all the tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever. Neither will I any more remove the foot of Israel from out of the land which I have appointed for your fathers, so that they will take heed to do all that I have commanded them, according to the whole law and the statutes and the ordinances by the hand of Moses. So Manasseh made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to err and to do worse than the heathen whom Yahweh had destroyed from before the children of Israel. So we already read in Kings that he did worse. It said in Kings, it said he did more evil than the heathen. Now it says here that he did worse. So yeah, it's so, you can't even fathom it, right? Because the people of the land originally, before the children of Israel came into the land, they were already doing these great abominations. But to say that this king here, Manasseh, did worse than those people, worse, is saying something. Not only did they go and do what the other nations were doing, but they did worse than those nations. Ugh. And Yahweh spake to Manasseh and to his people, but they would not hearken. Wherefore Yahweh brought upon them the captains of the host of the king of Assyria, which took Manasseh among the thorns, and bound him with fetters, and carried him to Babylon. And when he was in affliction, he besought Yahweh his God, and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers. So, here's another reason why this king probably reigned really long, because he actually humbled himself. Like, he was an evil king, but he turned his life around, basically. So that's probably why he got to reign longer. So it's like coming to terms with the whole picture. So he humbled himself greatly and prayed unto him, and he was entreated of him, and heard his supplication, and brought him again to Jerusalem into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that Yahweh, he was God. Now after this, he built a wall without the city of David on the west side of Gihon in the valley, even to the entering of the fish gate, and compassed about Ophel, and raised it up a very great height, and put captains of war in all the fenced cities of Judah. And he took away the strange gods and the idol out of the house of Yahweh, and all the altars that he had built in the mount of the house of Yahweh, and in Jerusalem, and cast them out of the city. Isn't this amazing? We see this evil king completely turn his life around. It's a great picture for us as, us who were unbelievers who came to Christ and had our life flipped upside down, right? That's a great picture. This evil king doing, and we literally read a couple of verses ahead, up above, that he did worse. This king, he was so evil, he did worse than the inhabitants of the land. I mean, we read some of them, what he did. Used enchantments, wizards, familiar spirits, sorceries. Um, and then the biggest one, his children, his own children, passed through the fire. You know what that means? It means a sacrifice to Moloch, or to a false god, to Baal, to Baalim. Basically, they're all devils. The devil. Sacrificing your own child in the fire. Like, that is just sick. But God still, used him, essentially. He used Manasseh. Manasseh completely turned his life around, and took away all this crap. And now obviously he still has to pay for what he did, right? But he was making amends for what he did by taking away all this. Now, I don't know how you make amends for making your children pass through the fire, but he must have really regretted that severely. But anyway, so he took away the strange gods, cast them out of the city. He repaired the altar of Yahweh, and sacrificed thereon peace offerings and thank offerings, and commanded Judah to serve Yahweh, God of Israel. Nevertheless, the people did sacrifice still in the high places, yet unto Yahweh their God only. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and his prayer unto his God, and the words of the seers that spake to him in the name of Yahweh, God of Israel, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel. His prayer also, and how God was entreated of him, and all his sin and his trespass, and the places wherein he built high places, and set up groves and graven images, before he was humbled. Behold, they are written among the sayings of the seers. So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house, and Amon his son reigned in his stead. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. But he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, as did Manasseh his father. For Amon sacrificed unto all the carved images which Manasseh his father had made, and served them, and humbled not himself before Yahweh, as Manasseh his father had humbled himself. But Amon trespassed more and more, and his servants conspired against him, and slew him in his own house. But the people of the land slew all them that had conspired against King Ammon, and the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his stead. So you could see the impact here of Manasseh. It doesn't say exactly how long he was evil, and how long, it doesn't say the times, but he was king for 55 years. So we can only guess, how long he was an evil king for, and how long he tried to make amends for what he did. But the fact remains, he did humble himself. Yes, he was evil. Yes, he did worse than the people who were originally in the land. Yes, he made his sons and daughters pass through the fire, but he humbled himself and turned from his ways, and got rid of most of the stuff. He didn't get rid of the carved images, but he tried. It's a great picture of us as unbelievers before we come to Christ, how wicked we were, and then coming to Christ. And even when we come to Christ, we we can still mess up and sin because we're still only human, but it's what we do with it after we sin. Do we cling closer to God, or do we fall away from God? So, yeah, it just goes to show you that God can even use such an evil, wicked king as Manasseh was for his purpose. Moving on to Nahum, the burden of Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum, the Elkoshite. God is jealous, and Yahweh revengeth. Yahweh revengeth and is furious. Yahweh will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. Yahweh is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. Yahweh hath his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebuketh the sea, and maketh it dry, and drieth up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth, and Carmel and the flower of Lebanon languisheth. The mountains quake at him, the hills melt, the earth is burned at his presence, yea, the world, and all that dwell therein. Who can stand before his indignation, and who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. This is one of my favorite verses. The Lord Yahweh is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knoweth them that trust in them. Man, what a great verse. God knows us who trust in him. That should give us great hope and encouragement. You know that, yeah. He knows us who trust in him. So keep trusting in him. But with an overturning flood he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. What do you imagine against Yahweh? He will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. For while they be folded together as thorns, and while they are drunken as drunkards, they shall be devoured as stubble fully dry. There is one come out of thee that imagineth evil against Yahweh, a wicked counselor. Thus saith Yahweh, though they be quiet, and likewise many, yet thus shall they be cut down, when he shall pass through. Though I have afflicted thee, I will afflict thee no more. For now I will break his yoke from off thee, and will burst thy bonds in sunder. And Yahweh hath given a commandment concerning thee, that no more of thy name be sown. Out of the house of thy gods will I cut off the graven image and the molten image. I will make thy grave, for thou art vile. Behold upon the mountains the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace. O Judah, keep thy solemn feast, perform thy vows, for the wicked shall no more pass through thee. He is utterly cut off. Nahum 2. He that dasheth in pieces is come up before thy face. Keep the munition, watch the way, make thy loins strong, fortify thy power mightily. For Yahweh hath turned away the excellency of Jacob as the excellency of Israel, for the emptiers have emptied them out and marred their vine branches. The shield of his mighty men is made red, the valiant men are in scarlet, the chariots shall be with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the fir tree shall be terribly shaken. The chariots shall rage in the streets, they shall jostle one against another in the broad ways, they shall seem like torches, they shall run like lightnings. He shall recount his worthies, they shall stumble in their walk, they shall make haste to the wall thereof, and the defense shall be prepared. The gates of the river shall be opened, and the palace shall be dissolved. The Huzzab shall be led away captive, she shall be brought up, and her maid shall lead her as with the voices of doves, tabering upon their breasts. But Nineveh is of old like a pool of water, yet they shall flee away. Stand, stand, shall they cry, but none shall look back. Take ye the spoil of silver, take the spoil of gold, for there is none end of the store and glory out of all the pleasant furniture. She is empty, and void, and waste, and the heart melteth, and the knees smite together, and much pain is in all loins, and the faces of them all gather blackness. Where is the dwelling of the loins, and the feeding place of the young lions, where the lion, even the old lion, walked, and the lions whelps, and none made them afraid? The lion did tear in pieces enough for his whelps, and strangled for his lionesses, and filled his holes with prey, and his dens with raven. Behold, I am against thee, saith Yahweh of hosts, and I will burn her chariots in the smoke, and with the sword shall devour thy young lions, and I will cut off thy prey from the earth, and the voice of thy messengers shall no more be heard. Nahum 3. Woe to the bloody city, it is full of lies and robbery, the prey departeth not. The noise of a whip, the noise of a rattling of the wheels, and the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots, the horsemen lifted up both the bright sword and the glittering spear, and there is a multitude slain, a great number of carcasses, and there is none of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts that selleth nations through her whoredoms, and families through her witchcrafts. I am against thee, saith Yahweh of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show thy nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame, and I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. And it shall come to pass that all that look upon thee shall flee from thee, and say, Nineveh is laid waste, who will bemoan her? Whence shall I seek comforters for thee? Art thou better than Populus? No, that was situate among the rivers that had the waters round about it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea. Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite. Put and Luban were thy helpers. Yet was she carried away. She went into captivity. Her young children also were dashed in pieces at the top of all streets, and they cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. Thou also shalt be drunken, and shalt be hid. Thou also shalt seek strength because of the enemy. And thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs, and they shall be shaken, they shall even fall in the mouth of the eater. Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women, and thy gates of thy land shall be set wide unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour thy bars. Draw thee waters for the siege, fortify thy strongholds, go into clay, and tread the mortar, make strong the bricklin. There shall the fire devour thee, and the sword shall cut thee off. It shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm, make thyself many as the locusts. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven. The cankerworm spoileth and flieth away. Thy crowned are as the locusts, and thy captains as the great grasshoppers, which camp in the hedges in the cold day. But when the sun ariseth, they flee away, and their place is not known where they are. Thy shepherds slumber, O king of Assyria. Thy nobles shall dwell in the dust. Thy people is scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathereth them. There is no healing of thy bruise. Thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap their hands over thee, for upon whom hath not thy wickedness passed continually? Yeah, so Nineveh basically got completely eradicated. So they went back to what they were doing. Like I said, Jonah was sent to Nineveh, and they were spared temporarily because they did repent. They did turn from their ways, howbeit temporarily. And then they went back to their old ways, and, God destroyed them. God gave them chance after chance. 2 Kings 22. Back to Josiah now. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jedidiah, the daughter of Adiah of Boscath. So Josiah, so he's after Ammon, which was the evil king who only reigned 2 years. So we're at Josiah now. So, yeah, looking at the list of kings of Judah, we're getting close to Babylon, the Babylonian captivity. He did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, and walked in all the ways of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And it came to pass in the 18th year of King Josiah that the king sent Shaphan the son of Azaliah, the son of Meshullam, the scribe, to the house of Yahweh, saying, Go up to Hilkiah the high priest, that he may sum the silver which is brought into the house of Yahweh, which the keepers of the door have gathered of the people, and let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of work, that they have the oversight to the house of Yahweh, and let them give it to the doers of the work which is in the house of Yahweh, to repair the breaches of the house, unto carpenters and builders and masons, and by timber and hewn stone to repair the house. Howbeit there was no reckoning made with them of the money that was delivered into their hand, because they dealt faithfully. And Hilkiah and the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of Yahweh. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the king, and brought the king word again, and said, Thy servants have gathered the money that was found in the house, and have delivered it into the hand of them that do the work, that have the oversight to the house of Yahweh. And Shaphan the scribe showed the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest hath to deliver me a book. And Shaphan read it before the king. And it came to pass, when the king had heard the words of the book of the law, that he rent his clothes. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam the son of Shaphan, and Achbor the son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the servant of the king, saying, Go ye inquire of Yahweh for me, and for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of Yahweh that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book, to do according unto all that is written concerning us. So Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam, and Achbor, and Shaphan, and Asaiah went unto Huldah, the prophetess, the wife of Shallum, the son of Tikvah, the son of Haras, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college, and they communed with her. And she said unto them, Thus saith Yahweh, God of Israel, tell the man that sent you to me, Thus saith Yahweh, Behold, I will bring evil upon this place, and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah hath read. because they have forsaken me, and have burnt incense unto other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place, and shall not be quenched. But to the king of Judah, which sent you to inquire of Yahweh, thus shall ye say to him, Thus saith Yahweh, God of Israel, as touching the words which thou hast heard, because thine heart was tender, and thou hast humbled thyself before Yahweh, when thou heardest what I spake against this place, and against the inhabitants thereof, that they should become a desolation and a curse, and hast rent thy clothes, and wept before me, I also have heard thee, saith Yahweh. Behold, therefore, I will gather thee unto thy fathers, and thou shalt be gathered into thy grave in peace. And thine eyes shall not see all the evil which I will bring upon this place. And they brought the king word again. Isn't that amazing? God had mercy on this king, Josiah. I mean, because why? It says why. His heart was tender, and he cried and repented before God, and he, so desperately wanted to turn from their ways and start living for the Lord, the way they're supposed to be. And God's like, you know what? Because of that, you're not going to see the evil that's going to come upon this place. You're going to be gathered into the grave. You're going to die before it happens. And that is great mercy, isn't it? Because if you've already read the Bible, you know what's going to happen. It's so much disturbing and disgusting things happen during the siege of Jerusalem, and also the captivity of Jerusalem to Babylon. Like, just horrifying things. Anyway, so God had mercy on Josiah. 2 Kings 23. And the king sent and gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up to the house of Yahweh, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in the ears all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in the house of Yahweh. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before Yahweh, to walk after Yahweh, and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and with all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest, and the priests of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of Yahweh all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the grove, and for all the host of heaven. And he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And he put down the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the host of heaven. And he brought out the grove from the house of Yahweh without Jerusalem unto the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of Yahweh, where the women wove hangings for the grove. And he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burnt incense, from Geba to Beersheba, and brake down the high places of the gates that were in the entering in of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on the man's left hand at the gate of the city. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of Yahweh in Jerusalem, but they did eat of the unleavened bread among their brethren. And he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. Yeah, that's basically Satan right there. No, it is. And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun in the entering of the house of Yahweh by the chamber of Nathan Melech, the chamberlain, which was in the suburbs of the burned chariots of the sun with fire. And the altars that were on the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the courts of the house of Yahweh, did the king beat down and break them from thence, cast the dust of them into the brook Kidron, and the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mount of corruption, which Solomon the king of Israel had builded for Ashtaroth, the abomination of the Zidonians, and for Cheshimosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile. And he brake in pieces the images, and cut down the groves, and filled their places with the bones of men. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam the son of Bet, who made Israel to sin, had made, both the altar and the high place he brake down, and burned the high place, and stamped it small to powder, and burned the grove. And as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were in the mount, and sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres, and burned them upon the altar, and polluted it, according to the word of Yahweh, which the man of God proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. Then he said, What title is that I see? And the men of the city told him, It is the sepulchre of the man of God, which came from Judah, and proclaimed these things that thou hast done against the altar of Bethel. And he said, Let him alone, let no man move his bones. So they let his bones alone, with the bones of the prophet that came out of Samaria. And all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel made to provoke Yahweh to anger, Josiah took away and did them according to the acts that he had done in Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burned men's bones upon them, and returned to Jerusalem. And the king commanded all the people, saying, Keep the Passover unto Yahweh your God, as it is written in the book of this covenant. Surely there was not holden such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor in the kings of Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, wherein this Passover was holden to Yahweh in Jerusalem. Moreover, the workers with familiar spirits and wizards and images and idols and the abominations that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem did Josiah put away, that he might perform the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of Yahweh. And like unto him there was no king before him that turned to Yahweh with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses, neither after him arose any like him. So such a great king, King Josiah. Notwithstanding, Yahweh turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations that Manasseh had provoked him withal. And Yahweh said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I removed Israel, and will cast off this city, Jerusalem, which I have chosen, and the house which I have said my name shall be there. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In his days Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went against him, and slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him. And his servants carried him in his chariot dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoaz the son of Josiah, and anointed him, and made him king in his father's stead. And Jehoaz was 23 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 3 months in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jerimoth of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his fathers had done. And Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim the son of Josiah king in the room of Josiah's father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim, and took Jehoaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, and everyone according to his taxation, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. So we are at Jehoiakim. It's going to get a little bit confusing because the next a few names are similar. The next one is Jehoiachin. So Jehoiakim, and we're moving right along. After Jehoiakim, there's only 2 more kings before Babylon comes and takes away people and besieges the city. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah, and he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his fathers had done. So yeah, like the verse said, Josiah was the last good king. He was the last one, and he really served God with all his heart, more so than it said any other king. Josiah. So yeah, it's sad, but you know what? God did say that he would go to the grave before the evil came upon Jerusalem, and that did. He died in battle, so Josiah didn't have to see the horrors that were coming. So anyway, we're getting close to the Babylonian siege and captivity. It's unfortunate. Like, you see such reforms with Josiah. You see the people, he took away all this stuff, and you see the people trying hard. But even without all the idols, images, and things like that, people still wanted to serve these false gods and deities and devils, even despite everything that Josiah did. Man, so sad. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a great evening, morning, noon, wherever you're at. Remember to put God first in everything you do. Have faith in him, trust in him, wait upon him, hope in him, and you'll never be sorry. And God willingly, we'll see you tomorrow with more Bible reading. So thanks again. Take care, and God bless.